Welcome to the Deep Dive. Yesterday, wow, what a day for baseball. Across the country, under the sun, under the lights. Just a fantastic slate of MLB games. We saw dominant wins. We saw some real nail-biters, even a few surprises thrown in. So our mission today, we're going deep. We'll walk you through the key moments, the standout players, the strategic calls that really shaped yesterday's action. We've sifted through the reports, the analysis, all of it to give you the clearest picture of what went down on the diamond, your shortcut to being in the know. So yesterday's schedule, it really was a smorgasbord, wasn't it? So many games, and each one felt like it offered a little window into where teams are right now. It's definitely more than just checking the box score these days.
Oh, absolutely not. It's fascinating how these individual games, even now, relatively early on, they start building this bigger picture. Every result, every scoreline, it's like a data point. It hints at strengths, maybe some weaknesses teams are trying to hide, and where they might be headed. We're really looking for the why behind the scores.
Exactly. And speaking of strengths, some teams definitely made statements yesterday. Let's start with the Tampa Bay Rays. They kept rolling, right? A convincing 7-3 win over the Tigers. Seems like just another win.
Yeah.
But you look deeper. What makes that a statement?
Well, for the Rays, it wasn't really about like smashing home runs. It was more a masterclass in manufacturing runs. They got 6 of their 7 runs without any homers. It shows incredible plate discipline. Their walked strikeout ratio yesterday, 0.45. That's really impressive. And you combine that with their bullpen, which actually lowered its FIP, that's fielder independent pitching, by almost half a run last week. That points to a sustainable way to win. It's all about grinding out at bats, limiting mistakes, not giving up free passes.
That's a great point. Sustainable is the key word there. Then you had the New York Yankees. Phew. Asserting their dominance at home, 9-6 against the Mariners. Classic slugfest at Yankee Stadium, the report said. But was it just the short porch, or was there more to it?
Well, yeah, the stadium helps, obviously. But the analytics from that game, really telling. Their average exit velocity on batted balls was over 98 miles per hour. That's way up from their season average. So it suggests they weren't just lucky, they were really squaring up the ball, especially, against Seattle's bullpen, which sometimes struggles with command despite the velocity. They waited for their pitch, made hard contact. It really shows a refined approach, even, like you said, with some key guys out.
Okay, and then talk about an offensive explosion. The Boston Red Sox. They just walloped the Colorado Rockies 10-2. Was that just the Red Sox bats finally clicking, or maybe more about the Rockies pitching, or both?
It was, yeah, a bit of both, for sure. But for Boston, what stood out was the plate discipline. Hugely improved. Their chase rate, swinging at pitches outside the zone, was nearly 10 points lower than usual in that game. So that forces pitchers into the zone, right? Leads to higher pitch counts, maybe earlier exits for the starter. It feels like a real tactical adjustment from Boston's hitters, not just, a random power surge. And yeah, Fenway, still a tough place for visiting pitchers, especially if command is an issue.
Right. Fenway factor is always there.
Yeah.
And we can't forget the Atlanta Braves kept their dominant season going, 9-2 over the A's. What specific data points show this was more than just another W, but really proof of their superior talent?
Oh, with the Braves, it really showcased their strategic depth. Look at their top 4 hitters combined on-base percentage of .550, just constantly setting the table. And then the guys in the middle of the order, they cashed in a remarkable 45% success rate with runners in scoring position, RSP. That's not just talent, it's execution. Converting those chances at such a high rate, that's what championship teams do.
So what's fascinating here, listening to you break it down, is how these wins weren't just wins. They were, like you said, tactical. These decisive games, especially Boston's offense coming from that plate discipline, or Atlanta being so clinical with runners on,
yeah,
it really cements their contender status, this kind of detailed offensive firepower when it's all clicking. It just sets a really high bar for everyone else, doesn't it?
Absolutely. When you see those underlying metrics lining up with the scoreboard, that's the signal. It points to sustainable success, not just, getting lucky for a day. These teams show processes that lead to wins.
Yeah, process over luck. But okay, on the flip side, for every team celebrating, there were others grappling with losses that maybe exposed some vulnerabilities. The Detroit Tigers losing 7-3 to the Rays, that had to sting. But is there data suggesting it's more about development than just, struggling?
Yeah. I mean, obviously they couldn't keep up with the Rays' offense yesterday, but you did see flashes from their younger hitters Their hard hit rate was actually above 40% in some key spots, but the overall strikeout rate was still high, around 28%. So the talent seems to be there, but that consistent contact needed to turn hard hits into actual runs. Still developing, it's the tough journey of rebuilding. Progress isn't always linear or obvious in the box score day to day.
Right, you got to look beyond the score sometimes. What about the Miami Marlins? They got routed 7-2 by the Reds. That seemed to highlight the inconsistencies they've had, especially if the pitching isn't sharp. What specifically went wrong on the mound for them?
The big issue for the Marlins yesterday seemed to be the walks. They issued 7 free passes. And when you do that, it just puts so much pressure on your defense, forces your pitchers to challenge hitters more, often in the zone. And that led to a higher barrel rate, allowed those ideal contact hits, usually for extra bases. If you're giving up free base runners and hard contact, it's just incredibly tough to win games. Doesn't matter much who's hitting for you.
Yeah, that's a recipe for disaster. And then the St. Louis Cardinals, a pretty frustrating 8-2 loss to the Washington Nationals. Now, it feels like it points to that ongoing search for consistency, especially pitching and defense.
Yeah, for the Cardinals, it looked like a couple of things. Their defensive efficiency rating, basically how often batted balls get turned into outs, was, well, way below average in that game. Combine that with a starter who couldn't really command his secondary pitches, making him predictable with the fastball. The Nationals could just sit on pitches and make good contact. It seems like more of a systemic thing affecting both the pitching and the fielding behind it.
Okay, so if we connect this to the bigger picture, like you were saying before, for teams like the Tigers, Marlins, Cardinals, they might show flashes, right?
Right.
But that consistency hitting and pitching, that's the real hurdle. It really highlights just how tough that rebuilding or retooling process is.
Exactly. And sometimes these maybe unexpected losses are the most revealing. They can expose weaknesses that might get papered over by a good individual performance here or there. It's all about finding that sustainable performance. And yeah, these teams are still searching for it.
But what makes baseball so great, keeps us watching every night, is that unpredictability. And we saw tons of that yesterday, especially in interleague play. Here's where it gets really interesting. The Chicago Cubs and the Minnesota Twins. What a strange day for them. First game, Cubs lose 2-4. Looks like a tight pitcher's duel kind of game. But then, later on, doubleheader. The Cubs just absolutely crushed the Twins 8-1. That's a serious turnaround. How do you explain that kind of swing in just a few hours? Shows they could adjust, I guess.
Yeah, that split series was like a perfect little microcosm of baseball's unpredictability, right? But there are usually reasons, often tactical ones. In Game 1, it looks like the Twins starter did a great job shutting down the Cubs' left-handed bats, kept it low scoring. But then Game 2, different pitcher for the Twins, maybe relied more on off-speed stuff. The Cubs hitters seemed to make a big adjustment. Maybe they laid off the breaking balls more, jumped on the fastballs. It shows an impressive ability to adapt quickly, within the same day even. So less about random momentum, maybe more about smart adjustments in different matchups.
That's a great insight, the tactical adjustment angle. Makes sense.
Yeah.
And speaking of turning tides, pitching was huge yesterday. Stellar performances, some struggles, really painted a picture of how vital a good rotation and bullpen are. Look at the Cleveland Guardians beating the Astros 4-2. That feels like a statement win, proving they can hang with the big boys, largely thanks to pitching.
Oh, definitely. That Guardians win was all about their pitching staff limiting hard contact. Their pitchers kept the average launch angle allowed below 10 degrees. That means lots of ground balls, maybe some line drives, but not the kind of contact that leads to extra base hits consistently. That ability to manage contact quality, that's a sign of an elite staff. It can neutralize even a powerhouse lineup like Houston's. It's much more sustainable long-term than just hoping for strikeouts all the time.
Controlling contact, not just missing bats. Got it. Then out west, Arizona, wow, an offensive clinic against the Padres 8-2. Their bats were just red hot. But for San Diego, that had to be disappointing, especially the pitching performance. Seemed like they couldn't slow the D-backs down.
Yeah, the Padres' pitching struggles were pretty clear. Their B-by-B batting average on balls in play was really high. Now, sometimes that's just bad luck, right? But here, it was also paired with maybe a lack of fastball velocity. And the D-backs hitters seemed to jump all over it, very aggressive approach. When your fastball isn't working and the off-speed stuff isn't fooling anyone, well, even a good defense can't save you all the time.
Yeah, pitching really is often that silent protagonist, isn't it? Setting the tone, controlling the game. Whether it's Cleveland stifling a great lineup by managing contact or another team struggling because the velocity isn't there, it just underlines that even with big bats, It's that pitching staff executing its plan that really separates the contenders long term.
Exactly. And that's where those deeper metrics like XFIP come in handy. They try to strip out some of the noise from defense and luck, focusing on what the pitcher actually controls. It helps us see which staffs are genuinely performing at an elite level and which might be, due for some regression or maybe even improvement.
That difference was pretty stark in some of those high-scoring games, too. Like the Angels and Rangers, 11-8. A real home run derby. Angels' offense looked dangerous, sure, but you still feel like their pitching needs work. And for Texas, scoring 8 runs and losing, that screams defensive issues or bullpen troubles.
Precisely. Look at the Angels' great offense, but their bullpen coughed up 5 runs late. They really struggled to strand runners in key spots, a low left-on-base percentage and high leverage. And for the Rangers, yeah, bats were working, but their defense, particularly on ground balls, seemed shaky. Their efficiency rating there was low, didn't convert enough of those into outs. It just proves even if you can score runs, if your pitching and defense are leaky, good teams will find ways to beat you.
But then you have the other end of the spectrum. Kansas City Royals sneaking past the Pirates, 4-3. Tight game. That felt like classic small ball, right? Good fundamentals, solid D, timely hits.
Yeah, perfect example of winning without relying on the homer. The Royals, 3 sack bunts, couple of stolen bases, and their defensive run save metric for that game was reportedly a season high for them. It's just a testament that, yes, fundamental baseball, good defense, smart base running, situational hitting, that still wins games too. You can manufacture runs without waiting for the 3-run blast.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's try and pull this all together. What does this all mean for us trying to follow the league closely? Yesterday's games, they feel like more than just results. They're giving us these crucial data points, right? Things that will feed into manager decisions, maybe trade talks down the line, playoff odds. We're seeing who has those sustainable processes and maybe who's got some holes to patch.
Definitely. Every single game, every hit, every out, every manager's move, it all adds to this bigger story, this narrative across 162 games. And the storylines from just yesterday, a player adjusting mid-game, a bullpen showing its true strength, or maybe its fragility based on those deeper numbers, those things echo. They shape how we, fans, analysts, even the teams themselves, perceive things moving forward. It's not just wins and losses. It's seeing the strategic foundations, or maybe the cracks in them.
Well said. The beauty of baseball really is that daily drama, isn't it? Every game feels connected, like a thread in this huge season-long tapestry. Yesterday's wins, the losses, the lessons learned, especially when you look beyond the surface with some of this analysis, they really are the building blocks for how the rest of this 2025 season is going to play out. So as you keep watching, think about how today's games might change how we view yesterday's results. What new stories, what new insights are waiting just around the corner on the diamond.